10.2 or greater, Nessus 10.6.1 or greater, and have access to the Docker engine to install the web application scanner on a Nessus host machine. Assuming you already have a Nessus scanner and Tenable SC installed, you will need to install the Docker engine on your Nessus host. This can be done via download from the Docker website or through the appropriate command line entries, depending on your operating system. Refer to the Docker documentation for your operating system's command line entries. The Tenable documentation outlines the command line entries for Red Hat or CentOS-based installations. After Docker is successfully installed, ensure Docker and Nessus are running by issuing the appropriate commands for your operating system. Retrieve your Tenable SC key with WAS activation from your customer portal. Apply your Tenable SC license and Nessus activation code in the Tenable SC as an administrator, and wait for the WAS plugin update to complete. The WAS plugins can be viewed in the plugin/feed page under configurations. Once the WAS plugins are updated, add the Nessus scanner to your Tenable SC instance under the Resources tab. Fill out the appropriate fields and toggle the Web App Scanning Capable toggle to on. The Nessus scanner will now receive updated plugins from Tenable SC, which can take up to 30 minutes depending on the resources of your Nessus scanner. In the background, after receiving the WAS activated license, Nessus should be installing the WAS container. Once the status changes to working, it will be ready to use. This is also a good time to set up a separate repository for the web application results. Under Repositories, add a repository and select Universal. Fill out the appropriate fields. Log in as a security manager and verify Web App Scans is available under the Scans menu. You can also check the scan policy to ensure that web app templates are available.
In addition to using one of the many templates available, you can create your own dashboard from scratch. Before you start, you should have a good idea of what sort of information you want to see and how you want to see it. What is the purpose of your dashboard? Always search first to see if there is a template that fits your needs, even partially. Remember, any dashboard can be modified, and it's much easier to modify an existing dashboard than to create one from scratch. Also, how do you want to see that information? Do you want tables, pie charts, bar graphs? Or do you need trending elements such as line and area charts? Start by clicking the Advanced option. You will see several column layouts. The default is 2 even columns. That's a good format for most components. The narrower columns are fine for pie charts and very small tables. Select your format and give your dashboard a meaningful name. Go ahead and switch to your new dashboard. Now, if you are not happy with the format that you selected, you can edit that at any time. Next, you want to add components. Now, there are several ways to do this. Just as there are dashboard templates, there are several component templates that you can pick and choose. The icon, as well as descriptive text, tell you what the component is: table, pie chart, matrix, trend graph, and so on. Select the component that you would like. Add additional focus, such as by asset, IP address, or repository. I'm going to select for my Windows 2016 hosts. If you don't like where the component is, you can grab it and drag and drop to a different location. Another easy way to populate components to your dashboard is by copying. Let's say there's a component on another dashboard that I'd like to use. I can go ahead and copy that, name your copy, and select your destination dashboard. Once copied, you can edit that copy so that you can change the focus if you'd like to the assets for this dashboard or however you have it set up. Finally, you can also add new custom components: tables, bar charts, pie charts, etc. You can select previously created queries to quickly populate a component and choose the information that you want to see. As you can see, custom dashboards are a very powerful analysis tool within Tenable SC. See the documentation for more information on specific types of components.
Today, we'll be discussing the process of handling false positives in Tenable SC. Within Tenable SC analysis, there is the ability to accept risk and recast risk. This functionality is reserved to those who have access based on the built-in role-based access within Tenable SC. Depending on the view you are in, when clicking the setting cog to the right of the vulnerability that you believe is a false positive, you have the ability to accept risk directly from that view. When accepting a risk within the vulnerability summary view, you will make a comment to indicate why you're accepting the risk. You can have it set to expire, so it does reappear after a certain date. Then you have to define the repository in which the accepted risk will apply to. Because I am accepting the risk based upon the vulnerability summary view, the default is to be accepting the risk for all devices on any port. Now, if I were to accept the risk directly in the vulnerability view, so I'm going to jump to my vulnerability detail list. If I am accepting the risk directly within the detail view, it will be for an individual system. So the accept risk button will be available in the detail view, and you'll see the parameters will change and the target will default to the individual IP. The accept risk feature is available to accept for all systems, for an IP address, an asset, or the agent UUID. Now, if you do believe this is a false positive and you are determining why if this vulnerability is triggering in your environment, always double check the plugin output to see what our scanner or agent is using to validate that vulnerability exists. Always verify, and if this is truly a false positive, make sure to contact our support team with validation and proof to indicate that this is in fact a false positive. Otherwise, the accept risk feature is something that you can use to hide the vulnerability within your analysis view, your dashboards, and reports. Now, if I were to accept the risk for this specific system, I'll indicate false positive. I'll select it for my vulnerability data for this host, and I will hit submit. You'll be able to see all your accepted risk and recast risk under the workflow tab. Selecting accept risk, you're now able to see the accepted risk for that one specific vulnerability for this individual system. You do have the ability to view or delete the accepted risk rules at any time. Jumping back to my analysis, there's also the ability to recast risk. Now, this is not going to be removing the vulnerability from your analysis view. This will simply allow you to change the severity. So maybe you do want to have visibility and still be able to see this specific vulnerability, but you want to change it to an informational, you are welcome to do so. And again, this will apply based upon what view you are in. So if you're under the detailed list view, this will be recasting the risk for the individual system. Jumping back to my vulnerability summary, and if I were to recast risk, this will be default all devices. This is a quick overview of how to handle false positives within Tenable SC with our accept risk and recast risk functionality.
In this video, I'll discuss the advanced host discovery policy options in Tenable SC. The host discovery scan policy template offers several options to select for what works best on your network. In a previous video, Launch a Host Discovery Scan, we discussed a few of the basic options, host enumeration and OS identification. The host discovery policy can do much more, however, such as enumerate all the open ports on your hosts. It's important to note that any option beyond simple host enumeration can impact your Tenable SC license. Common ports instructs the scanners to scan approximately 4,790 commonly used ports. The list of ports can be found in the Nessus-services file on a local Nessus scanner. All ports means just that, all 65,535 ports. Selecting this option can greatly increase your scan time, so take care with it. Selecting Custom Discovery allows you to further adjust ping and port scanner settings. The policy is already optimized for the fastest and most accurate scan for most networks, but your network administrator can tell you what works best for your environment. Take care especially with UDP, though. A UDP ping, especially against Linux targets, can immensely increase your scan time. For port scanning, while UDP ports can be exploitable, save this setting for later assessment. UDP should generally never be enabled for a discovery scan. One thing you can do here, however, is limit the ports more by selecting only a few with a comma-delimited list. For instance, if I limit my scan to just a few ports and then add credentials to my scan, I can greatly decrease scan time and network traffic, as the scanner will then use local port scanners such as Netstat and WMI.
Today, we'll be discussing the process of how to perform a backup on your Tenable SC application installed on Red Hat or CentOS 6 and 7. First, make sure that you are logged in as the root user on the Tenable SC hardware. Verify the service itself has been stopped. To do that, use the command systemctl status S security C center, one word. You'll be able to determine if the service is still currently running. If it is still running, use the previous command and change that to systemctl stop security center. Once the service has been stopped, verify with the status command that the service has been stopped. Once indicated that it is inactive, issue the following command, ps-fu tns. This will ensure that there are no processes associated with the user TNS. In this case, I do not have any services or processes running associated with my TNS user. To double check and make sure that none of the services associated with TNS is running, you will use the kill all -u TNS, and that will kill any processes associated with TNS. In addition, issue kill all HTTPD. Once you have issued that command and ensure that HTTPD is not running, you can proceed with creating a backup. The command we will be using is tar to create a backup and compress the file. We'll be using tar-p ZCF, which will preserve permissions, gzip, create, and a file archive for the opt.sc directory, which is where Tenable SC is installed. Provide a name for the backup, /opt.sc. You will just hit enter and let that run. Once the process has been complete, you can verify the backup is not corrupt by using the tar command -tvf as in Frank, and that will list all files in the archive verbosely. You'll just type in the backup name, let that run, and it will go through the process and verify that the backup is not corrupt. Once this has been verified, move the backup file to a secure location, and that is the process of creating a backup for your Tenable SC application on a Red Hat or CentOS 6/7 system.
This video will cover analyzing individual scan results. To begin, navigate to Scans and Scan Results. Here you will see a list of all scans that this user has run. Click on the scan to view the results. A few navigational items to note here is that the default view is a vulnerability summary, which provides the plugin ID, plugin name, plugin family, severity, vulnerability priority rating, or VPR, and the number of hosts that are affected. On the left side is the filtering pane, which you can open by clicking the arrow. Here you can add or remove filters to narrow your search results. For example, you could create a simple filter for medium, high, and critical severity levels. In addition to the filters, there are varieties of analysis tools that automatically slice the data into a meaningful view. For example, the DNS name summary provides a list of hosts by DNS name ranked by the total number of vulnerabilities which affect the given hosts. The IP summary tool provides a similar view but also includes a score column. It is important to note that the vulnerability score for an asset is computed by adding up the number of vulnerabilities at each severity level and multiplying it with the organization's severity score. It is also possible to drill down into the results by clicking on an item in the list. In this example, we can see a list of vulnerabilities affecting a given host. This gives us additional information, including the plugin name, the IP address, DNS name, MAC address, and the repository that the data is stored within. Clicking once more on an item in the list gives us a detailed view with an overview of the vulnerability description, solutions for remediation, raw plugin output, as well as CVSS details and additional metadata. You will also notice that the filter on the left-hand side gets populated automatically as you drill down further. To map your organization's asset landscape to Tenable SC for easier scanning, filtering, and reporting. To begin, we'll go to the Assets section. There are a variety of pre-built asset lists in Tenable SC, including common ones for Linux and Windows operating systems. Let's walk through creating a new asset list. The Templates section allows you to browse through ready-made templates created by the Tenable research team. You may find a pre-existing asset list that meets your needs, which requires little to no modifications. You can search these pre-built templates using keywords that include operating systems, applications, device types, vulnerabilities, and more. You can also create custom asset lists. There are two main types, static and dynamic. Static asset lists are those which do not change unless manually updated. Dynamic asset lists use rules to automatically update the assets within them based upon a defined criteria. For example, you could define a dynamic asset list to automatically include all assets identified as Windows servers. In this example, we'll create a static asset list for a specific range of IP addresses. Provide a name and optionally a description and tag. In the IP addresses section, you can specify individual IPs or ranges. You can also import a list of IP addresses that you may have exported from another asset management tool or a spreadsheet. After saving the asset list, you can use it in a variety of places within Tenable SC, such as vulnerability analysis, dashboards, and reporting. For example, let's navigate to our vulnerabilities. To use the new asset list, create a filter. We'll choose Select Filters and choose the Asset filter. Click on the new asset filter, and you can start typing the name of the filter or scroll through the list. Click Apply All. Now we have filtered the vulnerability summary to only show vulnerabilities which affect systems in our asset list. This video will discuss classifying assets based on vulnerability data in Tenable SC. Tenable SC assets are lists of systems within a Tenable SC organization. You can create an asset list to group devices that share common attributes. Then, you can use the asset list throughout other workflows in Tenable SC. To begin, navigate to the Assets section. There are a variety of asset lists which are added by default for device types and operating systems. Add an asset list based on vulnerability data. In the Templates section, click Vulnerabilities. You can add these ready-made asset lists with the click of a button. You can add the Critical Vulnerabilities asset list, which identifies all assets with at least one critical vulnerability. If desired, you can view the number of assets on a per repository basis. You can further refine this asset list by using it as a base and making edits. For example, add another rule to focus on Windows systems. First, change the clause from any to all. Next, add a new rule. Choose operating system as the filter and use regex as the matching operator. This will match on the different spellings of Windows. Next, change the name and description to match the updated rules. Now save the asset list. You can see the number of matching assets has dropped significantly due to the added filter. You can also use different types of asset lists to refine the dataset. The combination asset list is a good example of this. For example, to identify critical Windows assets that are also in a specific location, you can leverage a static asset list which has already been created for the corporate headquarters. Using the AND clause, this combination asset list will identify the systems that exist in both lists to produce a list of Windows assets located in the corporate headquarters. As you can see, this combination asset list has narrowed our systems down to 2 hosts that exist in both the corporate headquarters and match a Windows operating system as well as have a critical vulnerability. You can now use these 2 asset lists to do analysis, create dashboards, and run reports.
As an admin on Tenable SC. With the release of SC 5.10.0, you now have the ability to add API keys for Nessus managers and Tenable IO scanners. On Nessus scanners page, add or edit a pre-existing scanner to add API keys. Please note that API keys will be used only for agent scans. Toggle on the API keys button and to add the API keys. Now you will have to enter the access key and secret key that were generated from Nessus or Tenable IO scanner. To generate these keys, log into the Nessus or Tenable IO scanner. Go to my account page and then click on API keys tab. Here you will see the generate button. Once you click on the generate button, you will be displayed the access key and secret key. Copy and paste the access key and secret key retrieved from Nessus or Tenable IO scanners onto our Tenable SC page. Click on Submit. This is how you set up API keys on Tenable SC.
In this video, I'll discuss how to set up the Lumen connector for Tenable SC. This will import Tenable SC data into Tenable Lumen, giving you a much fuller picture of your cyber exposure. To use this feature, you must have Tenable SC version 5.13 or higher installed and own a Tenable Lumen license within Tenable IO. Log into Tenable SC as an admin user. Set up the Lumen connector here under System, Configuration. You will need to obtain a set of access keys from the user settings in Tenable IO. To do this, log into Tenable IO and navigate to the user's management page. Select the user you wish to use to connect to Tenable SC. This user should have an administrator role. Click on the API Keys tab and generate keys. Note that API keys are only visible here upon initial generation, so make sure you copy the keys and keep them in a safe place. Once you have generated keys, resetting them will break the connection. If you must reset them, you will need to ensure you put the new keys in the Tenable SC configuration. Select the repository or repositories to sync to Tenable IO. You can select multiple repositories, or you can create a dedicated repository to sync. Data will populate in Tenable Lumen within 48 hours, or you can choose to manually sync the data. Additionally, every time a scan runs in Tenable SC where the import repository is set up to sync, that scan data will then be transferred to Tenable IO for evaluation. Static IP asset lists in Tenable SC can also be synced with Tenable Lumen. This creates a similarly named tag for the synced assets in Tenable IO. For example, here I have my internal lab assets list selected to be synced. In Tenable IO, I can then sort on this tag. And that will show up as Tenable SC contains, and then internal lab assets is the same name as my static asset list. And there are my synced assets.
I'm going to demonstrate how to create a custom Nazzle plugin package for Tenable SC. Nazzle, or Nessus Attack Scripting Language packages, include 3 components: a required custom feed info file, which looks like this, one or more custom plugin files zipped up in a tar file, and optionally, a certificate of authenticity, or CA file. Once you have all of those three components, we're going to gather the files together into another tarball. And there you have it, your own custom Nazzle plugin package.
In this video, I'll give a broad overview on how to set up a custom report in Tenable SC. In addition to using one of the many templates available, you can create your own report from scratch. Before you start though, you should have a good idea of what sort of information you want to see and how you want to see it. What is the purpose of your report? Who is the audience? Always search first to see if there is a template that fits your needs, even partially. Any report's definition can be modified, and it may be easier to modify an existing report than to create one from scratch. Also, how do you want to see that information? Do you need details for every vulnerability, or prefer concise tables, charts, or graphs? If the latter, consider creating a dashboard first for what you need. You can always export dashboards to a PDF format. Custom reports can be created for PDF, CSV, or RTF output. The CSV is the simplest. Just name your report, specify the filters you want and what display columns you want to output, and set up either the schedule or run it on demand. You can also, of course, select existing queries to quickly populate your filters. And then you can add additional filters if needed. You can set up a distribution to email to somebody and save. PDF and RTF reports can be much more complex. These are created using grouping elements. You want to start with a chapter. This serves as a framework for the grouping. Once you have that set, you can create further subgroups or add text or chart elements. Many of these elements have the same attributes as those you would add to a dashboard. By default, hosts and vulnerabilities are listed in the report individually. The iterator is a powerful grouping element as it allows you to change this. Here, you can specify how the report groups its data by host, by port, or by vulnerability. If you have added a subgroup element, such as the iterator, you still need to add at least one text or chart element so that the system knows how to display your data. Generally with iterators, you want to add a table. Template chapters are also a very useful tool in report building. These are made of pre-made groupings that cover a wide range of subjects. Much like a report or dashboard template, you can narrow the focus of the template chapters as needed. Whether you build your report from the ground up or partially use templates, Tenable SC has many reporting options.
Take a look at how to gather a Security Center diagnostic file, a debug, when the Security Center UI is inaccessible. You can see I have Security Center that is inaccessible. I can't really do anything. And actually what I did is I stopped the Security Center service just for the purpose of this video here. So you see when I refresh, it's just not coming up. And that's because the service is stopped. But if you have, for some reason, some other reason you can't access it and support is asking for a debug, this is what you can do. So there's actually one command which is actually right here. And I'll actually type it out instead of just pasting. It's relatively simple here. And so once I run this command, it actually goes through the process of generating the diagnostic file, which is very helpful for support and for troubleshooting issues. And at the end, it shows the package is available at optscdebug.zip. So this is the file that is available if you were to, from the UI, log in as admin and click on the System tab, Diagnostics, then you can create the diagnostics file. So now that it's here, you can check that directory, which I have already navigated to. And you can see the debug.zip file is here. It was just recently created. So after you have this, you can share it with support, and you can go from there.
New user in Tenable SC, first log in to the user console with an account with the proper permissions. In this case, we're logged in with an account in the security manager role. Next, from the top menu, select users. From the drop-down menu, select users, and we are now in the user management console. Select the add button from the top right corner of the console. We are now in the add user form. You have the option to add the first name of the user and the last name of the user. You are required to put in a username and a password and confirm that password. If this is a temporary password, you can use the toggle switch that will require the user to change their password when they log in. Select the time zone for this user, and under membership, select the role that this user will be a part of. All of our roles are documented in our online documentation for Tenable SC. In this case, we're going to take executive role. You have the ability to change the group permissions for this role and this user by selecting the toggles for manage all users or manage all objects. In this case, we're going to leave them as default. If this user will be managing a set of assets, you have the ability to select an asset list that will allow them to manage only those assets. Simply click on the drop-down box and select the asset list that pertains to their assets. Finally, you have the option to add additional contact information for this user. When complete, select the Submit button.
Today, we're going to learn a little bit about creating a port scan within Tenable SC. So the first thing we're going to do is click Scans, and we're going to create our port scan policy. Click Add here in the top right, and we're going to build this particular policy based on our host discovery scan. So we'll name this policy appropriately. And in this configuration setting is where we will choose the port scan. So port scan common ports, port scan all ports. Common ports is just going to scan the lower range. All ports obviously is going to scan between 1 and 65,000 plus ports. Go ahead and submit that particular policy, and we will slide over here to active scans. We will add an active scan and again, name appropriately. We will choose our port scan policy. We will select our default repository in this case. You may have a different repository you want this to go into. We will go to targets. I'm just going to pick an IP address on my local range. And we would go ahead and submit that particular scan. In order to kick the scan off, we would hit this launch button over here.
I'm going to show you how to create reports in Tenable SC. We're going to show you two ways of creating the report. You can create a report directly from here. You go to Options, drop down, and choose Send to Report. I'm going to name it Demo VPR Summary. And we're going to schedule this now and hit Submit. You're going to go to Reporting report results. And here's the report that is created and currently being generated. Next, you're going to go to reporting on the top. This is a second way of creating the report. We're going to go to reports, and we're going to add. There are multiple templates in Tenable SC. You can choose the templates, or you can customize as well. Or you can search your templates. We're going to search for a vulnerability template. Let's choose the top 10 executive report template. In the template, you can customize based on either all systems or your assets, IPs, or repositories. We're going to choose all systems and add. Now we're going to edit this report, call it demo. And you have the option to add logos and so forth here. And continue to edit and define the particular report based on different paragraphs. And a distribution using emailing or sharing among the team. Then we're going to hit submit. Now you can generate this hitting the play button on the right. And we're going to go back to report results. And there you go, it's currently generating. We're going to look back at the report that was generated in the beginning. I'm going to click on that and you just download the report.
In as an admin user. We will click on System Configuration and click SAML button. We will now enable SAML and fill in the SAML settings. These SAML settings are provided by your identity provider, so please contact them for the information for these fields. We will save these changes and now click back on the SAML button. Below, there will be an Download SAML Configuration XML button. We will click this button in order to download the information to upload to our IDP. We will now log out and log in as a security manager. Please note now that SAML is enabled, we have the sign in using identity provider. We will now create a user, a SAML user. We will change the type to SAML and create this SAML user. Please make sure this user exists on the identity provider and the username attribute matches up with the SAML configuration page. We will now log out. We will upload our SAML configuration XML to a public-facing website called SAML Test ID. You can use this website to test your SAML connection. We will upload the recently downloaded SAML configuration XML and click Upload. Now that this file is uploaded, we will go back to our Tenable SC instance and log in as a SAML user. We will click the sign in using identity provider, log in, click the accept button, and we are now logged into our Tenable.
Today I'm going to show you how to create an LDAP user with Tenable SC. Please verify that your LDAP settings are entered in and working correctly. Once you have the LDAP settings entered in, log in as a security manager account and click Users and Add User. We will then select LDAP, do a search for the LDAP user, fill in the required information, any additional memberships, group permissions, asset list ranges. Once you have all that confirmed, hit submit. Now that you've seen we added this account, we will try to log in. Please note that when you are creating your LDAP settings, the account needs to have access to the OU where those accounts reside.
In this video, I'll discuss how to create reports from templates in Tenable SC. There are a few pre-built reports that can automatically populate with each user. In addition, Tenable provides several report templates within Tenable SC. These templates are updated and added to regularly via the feed. Similar to dashboard templates, they are categorized by type. You can also easily search for templates. For example, if I want to know which reports will provide information on my malware-related vulnerabilities, I just type that term in, and then press Enter. Some reports can also be identified from a search by terms used in tags. Here, you can read a brief description of the report, as well as identify which sensors, products, and data types are required for the report to work more effectively. Let's look at the Malware Indicator report. This only requires data from a Nessus scanner. To add the report, simply click anywhere on the tile. Once you select the report template, you are given a further option to focus the report. By default, all systems are targeted. You can focus all elements of the report further on a specific asset list as well as optional repository, IP range or optional repository, or just a repository. I'll focus my report on Windows hosts that are in my active scans repository. Then update the title accordingly. Then just click Add. By default, the report is created with an on-demand schedule, meaning you would need to manually launch it. You can edit the report further from here. Create a schedule, as well as add a watermark or logo and an encryption password. You can also set the report up to automatically email or share the resulting PDF with other Tenable SC users, or even outside email addresses.
This video will discuss using dashboard templates. The dashboard capability of Tenable SC makes it easy to view your security posture at a glance through a variety of dashboards focused on specific metrics or more broad vulnerability data. There are a few built-in dashboards, and the first one we'll look at is the Vulnerability Overview. Dashboards are comprised of components, which can be a variety of charts as well as tables, which you can see here. As the name implies, this dashboard is good for understanding the most pervasive vulnerabilities and assets in your environment. The Top 10 Vulnerabilities chart lists the most prevalent vulnerabilities as well as the number of affected assets, as noted in the Total column. The Top 10 IP Summary component provides a list of the IP addresses ranked by their vulnerability score. In addition to the built-in dashboards, it is easy to add additional dashboards via templates. Click the Add Dashboard item to begin. These templates are provided by Tenable and are categorized by type. You can also search for templates. For example, if you wanted to search templates related to Windows systems, simply type Windows in the search field. Here, you can read a brief description of the dashboard, as well as identify which sensors, products, and data types are required for the dashboard to work most effectively. For example, the credentialed Windows Scanning Dashboard template only requires data from a Nessus scanner. To add it, click the arrow. You have the option to narrow the focus to specific assets, as well as define when you would like this dashboard to update. After doing so, click the Add button. The dashboard will begin to update and populate the components. You can switch dashboards at any time by using the Switch Dashboard dropdown. And when you are ready for advanced usage and customization, you can use the Options menu to customize or create new dashboards.
So I have a host discovery policy, and we'll click to edit just to view. For the most part, everything for this policy will stay as default as the instructions show. So once that policy is saved, it will be an available policy for your scans. So what you would do after creating the policy is create the scan. So what you would do is you'd click Add up here, and you would use the policy that you recently created. Now I created this scan already, so I'm just going to take a look at this scan. You can see I use the policy here. I have a scheduled host discovery scan every day in the morning, so it repeats frequency daily, every day. I could have it do every other day if I wanted. And really you can set this up in accordance with your asset list. And really just how frequently you're able to run host discovery scans, or how frequently you want to check your environment for new hosts. So in here what you would have is set up your scan zone. For our case, automatic distribution's fine. The repository, this is my main vulnerability repository. In the targets, I just have the subnets I'm looking to scan, no credentials in this case, and I have a report configured for this, but that's not necessary. And then you click submit. So now this scan will run just about every day at 1 a.m. So we have the policy created, we have the scan created. So let's take a look at the asset list. So what you would ordinarily do is click Assets, click Add to make a new asset, and you would want to make a dynamic asset list. Now I have done this already, so I will show you mine here. And this is, to me, it's a pretty important list to see, to stay on top of, so I like to be able to see it right at the top. And then, as you can see, my asset list has been working. Currently has 7 new hosts that's been detected. So let's take a look at the asset list to see what is defined for this list. So just the name, description, and really just one asset definition here. And what it is days since discovery is less than one day where this plugin ID is discovered. You can take a look at what this plugin is. So it's ping the remote host. So once this is reported in a host discovery scan, or once it's reported on a host for the first time ever, it will show. So that plugin, this asset definition, is how this is populated. So once I launch the host discovery scan, and this plugin is detected on that host for the first time ever, then it will be populated on this asset list.
Going to be talking very much about the vulnerabilities themselves, as that's going to be covered in the links noted with this video. First, let's talk about detecting Log4j and the associated vulnerabilities. Tenable has released both plugins and scan policies to help customers search for this in their environments. The plugins and the scan policies will appear automatically in the application for most customers. Air-gapped environments will want to make sure that they update both the plugins and the feed to get these new assessment tools. Simply go to Add under Policies and select the policy that you want. Detailed descriptions of these policies is also available in the links below this video.
Once the policy is added, simply click Submit and it will be available for use. Once this is available, go to Active Scans and click Add an Active Scan. Select the policy that you just created, and now you can run a scan using it. We do recommend that on internal scans you add credentials. This will make the scan more efficient and help you assess your network more thoroughly. Once your scans have finished, you can track the findings with a new dashboard. This is called Log4Shell Critical Vulnerability, and it's available by going to Options, Add Dashboard, and searching for Log4Shell. Simply click on Add and it will be available for use. This dashboard will cover the findings for the Log4j vulnerability, as well as other Java and Apache detections that are posing risk in your environment. Tenable SC customers can also use both queries and assets to help with their tracking of these within the tool. For example, I can use this query to track any Log4Shell detections from a vulnerability perspective. With an asset group, I can also use this asset group to detect where Log4j might exist in my environment. Thank you for watching, and good luck remediating these series of vulnerabilities.
Log in as an admin user to Security Center. Then navigate to System, and then Configuration. Then click the Miscellaneous tile. Now, under Scanning, toggle on IP randomization. Then hit Submit. Remember, if you have existing scans, and even if they were created ahead of time, once you flip this switch, all scans will randomize their IPs. This will help alleviate network load imbalances during scans.
The WAS plugins can be viewed in the plugin/feed page under configurations. Once the WAS plugins are updated, add the Nessus scanner to your Tenable SC instance under the Resources tab. Fill out the appropriate fields and toggle the web app scanning capable toggle to on. The Nessus scanner will now receive updated plugins from Tenable SC, which can take up to 30 minutes depending on the resources of your Nessus scanner. In the background, after receiving the WAS activated license, Nessus should be installing the WAS container. Once the status changes to working, it will be ready to use. This is also a good time to set up a separate repository for the web application results. Under Repositories, add a repository and select Universal. Fill out the appropriate fields. Log in as a security manager and verify Web App Scans is available under the Scans menu. You can also check the scan policy to ensure that web app templates are available.
In this video, we will demonstrate the process of exporting an asset list within Tenable SC. Within the GUI, click on Assets on the top navigation bar. Select the desired asset list you wish to export and click on the gear icon on the right-hand side. Scroll down to Export, and your asset list will be exported to your Downloads folder.
So we are going to click into our scan results section to view the scans that have been completed. We're going to come over here on the right side of any one of the scans that have completed. We'll click on the little gear icon and we will download. This will download a zip file. Within that zip file, you'll have a .nessus file, which will give you the scan results, all packaged up and exported from Tenable SC. So we'll click download. We see it download here, and we have now exported scan data from Tenable SC.
Demonstrate two ways of identifying when vulnerabilities were first and last seen in your environment using Tenable SC. We will begin in the Analysis Vulnerabilities section. To identify all vulnerabilities first seen more than X days ago and last seen less than Y days ago, we will expand the teal greater than symbols to the left. From here, we will choose Select Filters, and we will find Vulnerability Discovered. Select and apply, and now we will set it to a value. There are many pre-built options for you to choose from, but you can also choose a custom range of dates. For example, if I wanted to identify all vulnerabilities first seen 60 or more days ago, I would set the custom values to 60 and all. Click OK to apply the value. Now, if we also wanted to determine if these vulnerabilities were seen recently, then we would choose Select Filters again and find Vulnerability Last Observed. Select and apply, and again, we'll set it to a value. The same pre-built options exist. In this case, we'll choose within the last 7 days. We'll apply that, and now choose Apply All to apply the filter set to our results. The results displayed were all identified 60 or more days ago and last seen within the last 7 days. I can choose one of these vulnerabilities on one of these hosts and drill in, and you will find in the Discovery section, it identifies when we first saw this vulnerability and when we last saw it on this particular host. Now, if instead we wanted to identify when a specific vulnerability was first and last seen on a system in our environment, we'll go back to where we started here. Apply these changes. So now we'll go to Select Filters and we will choose Address and click Apply. We'll set it to a value of the system that we're looking for. OK to apply that. And now we'll choose Select Filters, and we will find the particular plugin ID we're looking for. You could also search by plugin name or CVE or other similar terms. I'll use plugin ID for this demonstration. Set it to a value, OK to apply, and then choose Apply All. Now we've found our one vulnerability on our one system here, and if we drill in, you'll find the familiar detail page with the Discovery section in the top right.
In this video, I'm going to be going over some of the new features in Tenable SC 6.0. The features today are both available in SC and SC+. Universal Search allows customers to quickly search for vulnerabilities and pull back all known vulnerabilities from the Tenable Vulnerability Database. This includes vulnerabilities by CVE that Tenable has coverage for, or Tenable has no knowledge of via our Tenable Vulnerability Database, or TVDB. Let's start off with CVE 2022-1529. In this specific CVE, Tenable has coverage for, and you can also see all of our hosts that are impacted by this CVE. We can even scroll down to the bottom and look at all plugins that fall under the CVE coverage. We can also look for vulnerabilities in CVEs that Tenable may not have current coverage for. In CVE 2021-34398 is a NVIDIA CVE. Currently, Tenable does not have a plugin for this CVE. However, we do have threat intelligence about this specific vulnerability via our VPR key drivers. With Universal Search, we've shown how customers can quickly search for vulnerabilities that Tenable has coverage for, both in product and through our Tenable Vulnerability Database. These plugins and these updates happen automatically through our plugin feed and our feed updates via offline updates or online updates. We're going to go over the new Health Overview dashboard in Tenable SC 6.0. This dashboard is available in both SC and SC+. In SC 6.0, Tenable is giving Tenable SC administrators visibility into infrastructure health in an easy-to-use dashboard so that you can react accordingly. Tenable can also make performance and optimization recommendations through dashboard updates. Tenable is currently planning on enhancing the health dashboard in future releases. Let's go over some of the new features in this dashboard. As you can see, Tenable is going to inventory your current Tenable SC installation, and we're going to make recommendations based off what we discover. As you can see, we do not have SMTP configuration, and we can look at our repository sizes. We can also hover over the various tooltips to get more information about these recommendations. We can look at the job queue, scan zones, job queue delays. We can also get some recommendations on why and how we can solve this. We can look at scan zones that overlap, scanners that are not working due to various errors. Tenable can also make recommendations on scanners in a zone. If you have Nessus agent managers as network scanners, this can be a problem as this can hurt performance. We can also look at degraded scan zones that are not running or could reduce scan performance. We can also look at the Nessus agent managers or Tenable IO that are not utilizing API authentication. As you've seen, the health dashboard gives Tenable SC administrators visibility into their infrastructure to quickly spot issues in their Tenable SC instance. You can also review Tenable's best practices by hovering over the various tooltips in each section.
Quick overview of our updated tables and grids function in Tenable SC. So let me show you this new feature. If we jump into the analysis page, you'll see an all new table and grid layout here, and that allows for us to resize columns. It also allows for us to move columns so that we can get everything in the exact order that we want. The other thing to show you is that we can now perform bulk updates for accept and recast risk. So if I was to do this right here and say accept risk, this risk is now mitigated. Select my repositories, select my targets, and do a submit. If I now go back and filter on accepted risk, you will see here that we have all of our comments showing against all of our risk mitigations. And again, I can move this to my most appropriate view so that I can see it exactly where I want to see it. This same capability of dragging and dropping columns and doing the resize is available anywhere that there is a table, so such as in the dashboard page. If I wanted to see my mediums first or my criticals first, I can do that. I can resize the dashboard element. Same thing is true in solutions view. Same thing is true in host assets, looking at the findings and the software inventory stack. Thanks so much for joining us for this quick. Welcome to an overview of all of the new features that we have introduced in Tenable SC. What we are going to look at on this video is the brand new host assets view. So this doesn't replace anything that is already existing in prior versions of Tenable SC, but what we have done is we have added this new view here where for the first time you can anchor on your assets, see all of your assets listed here, and of course all of this is clickable. So if we drill into this particular asset here, we can see what it is, we can see what type of server it is, the findings in terms of the vulnerabilities, but also we have this new capability that on a per asset basis you can also see all of the software that is listed. So we are excited to introduce this new functionality to you, and we hope you enjoy using this new feature.
In this video, we will be walking through Tenable's provisioning portal, which allows customers to directly assign IPs and assets to their purchased consoles and containers, and also to create Nessus agent managers. To access the portal, head to provisioning.tenable.com and log in using your community account credentials. When you first log in, you'll land on the Tenable SC page. The flows for Tenable SC and Tenable SC CV are the same, so we'll just walk through the steps for Tenable SC, followed by those for Tenable IO. What's displayed here are all the parent license codes you have for Tenable SC, in this case just one, and you can see the total number of IPs and consoles that you have under each parent license. When you click on a particular parent license code, you will see all the child consoles that are grouped under that parent. To create a console, use the Add Console button in the upper right, optionally set a label, and either use the slider bar or type in an IP count to set the number of IP. To edit a console, hit the three dots, select Edit Console, and then use the slider bar again or type in your number of IPs to adjust the IP count. If you reduce the number of IPs, those will be freed up to be used on another console. You can also delete a console using the Delete Console button. Once you've created a console, you will need to click on this link to go to the products page in Community so that you can set the hostname and download the key file. Note that whenever you edit a console size, you will need to re-download the key and upload to the respective host for those changes to take effect. Also keep in mind that it might take a minute or two for a new console to show up in Community. We also allow you to create Nessus agent managers through the provisioning portal. While you can purchase standalone Nessus agent managers, we allow you to create one on-prem agent manager per child console, as well as one cloud agent manager per parent license. To create an on-prem Nessus agent manager, click on the three dots and select Add On-Prem Agent Manager. Your Nessus agent manager will then appear in Community. Alternatively, to create a single cloud agent manager associated with your parent license, navigate to the Cloud Agent Managers tab and use the Add Cloud Agent Manager button on the upper right to create your agent manager. Just note that you will be asked to specify a unique email address, as is required for the creation of any cloud container. Now let's review how to create a Tenable IO container. The flow for Tenable IO is similar. Click on Tenable IO on the left and you'll be directed to this page, which lists all the parent license codes you have for Tenable IO. When you click on a particular parent license code, you will see all the child consoles associated with that parent code. Note that in this case, child consoles are synonymous with Tenable IO cloud containers. When you create a console in the provisioning portal, a cloud container is spun up on the fly, and thus you will be asked to specify a unique email address for the Tenable IO container. You will also be given the UUID for the container. As with Tenable SC, you can create, edit, and delete consoles, and you can shift assets from one to another. And that is it. Just a few minutes and your new Tenable product is...
We're going to talk about the new Tenable One configuration that was released in Tenable SC Plus 6.1. This new configuration allows Tenable One to use the unique identifier, or UUID, instead of an IP address when sending data up to Tenable 1. This allows us to limit the data duplication in Tenable 1. To get started, we need a few things. In Tenable 1, log into Tenable.io, go to Settings and My Account. Under API keys, click Generate. This will generate an access and secret key. Please store these in a safe location. In Tenable SC, log in as the main admin account. Go to System, Configuration, and Tenable 1. You will then put in your access and secret key and click Test Connection. Once we are successful, it will say Connected to Tenable 1. Please note that we require outbound over 443 to cloud.tenable.com. You will need to synchronize the repository for all of your vulnerability data. Please note it will take up to 4 to 6 hours to populate the Tenable 1 data. You will then need to synchronize your assets. We support both static and dynamic assets. This allows you to create custom tags based off of your current assets within Tenable SC+. In Tenable SC+, the configuration allows you to manage and view all of your analytics in Tenable 1 and Tenable 1 Enterprise. You can also view your Tenable 1 data and scores under System and Tenable 1 Data. This also gives you a history of what was uploaded and any errors that occurred during the synchronization. We have lots of information in our Tenable 1 YouTube education channel, along with our documentation on docs.tenable.com.
To do large-scale vulnerability management, they can use the Tenable SC console to centralize scanning and information gathering from multiple sources into one holistic platform. For the majority of security programs, this process works well, but of course, there are outliers. For organizations that have requirements to scan hundreds of thousands of assets or utilize multiple Tenable SC consoles, Tenable has released Tenable SC Director. With Tenable SC Director, you will be able to link multiple Tenable SC consoles to it for a centralized administration platform to monitor the health of Tenable SC consoles, scanners, and plugins of attached consoles. Diving deeper into the platform, an administrator is able to see the health of each individual Tenable SC console and their applicable scanners to include version, status, and plugin sets. Each one of the Tenable SC consoles that has been linked can be drilled down into to view the scans and their jobs, or the administrator can see every scanner in one list. One of the most powerful capabilities is the ability to monitor scan jobs across multiple Tenable SC consoles and scanners to include their status, IP counts, instance, and policies. This is a powerful tool for troubleshooting scan issues across large organizations and ensuring that your vulnerability management program's SLAs are met in a timely.
Welcome to the Tenable Security Center product education channel. In this video, we're going to review Tenable web application scanning vulnerabilities within Tenable Security Center. Now, let's assume that you've already run a few web application scans, so head over to the scans section of Security Center. While I only have a few web application scans and a few vulnerability management scans that have been imported, so it's easy to look through them, you may have hundreds of total scans, so you may want to filter down. It's important to remember you can filter down by type, such as web application. Let's go ahead and review the results of one of these scans. As you can see, there are quite a few vulnerabilities in this scan. I tend to put these vulnerabilities into roughly 4 buckets. The first class of vulnerabilities falls into kind of foundational hygiene, such as HTTP headers and SSL TLS. And then the second bucket tends to fall into that component-based vulnerability. Now, the component-based vulnerabilities are very similar to those that may have a security center or a Nessus background. And this is because we are looking for a type of software in use along with an associated version of this software and vulnerabilities associated with them. The methods used to find these versions include reading response headers, traversing the site for known paths and URLs indicative of certain technologies and versions, and even interacting with the console within DevTools. In this particular case, we see not only vulnerabilities associated with the versions of Apache, but we also see a vulnerability that's critical in that the version of Apache is actually unsupported. We recommend starting with these first two categories, and again that was SSL TLS along with the security headers, and component vulnerabilities, as those are generally the easiest to remediate. The next grouping of vulnerabilities is the web application specific vulnerabilities, the ones that harken back a little bit more closely to the OWASP top 10. As an example, let's click into this blind SQL injection vulnerability. We see we have just the one here. Just like with the other vulnerabilities within Security Center, we're going to give you a synopsis with a description and then steps to remediate. And over on the right-hand side, you're going to see all exploit information, cross-reference details. Now, where it starts to deviate and differ is that in the identification of the vulnerability, it's going to be much more closer towards the actual exploitation of the vulnerability. It generally will not be an actual exploitation attempt, but it will be as close as possible in order to validate that the vulnerability does exist. Now, to get to the information that you need to send over to your developers or validate the vulnerability is not a false positive, over on the right-hand side, we see that we have the attachments. These can be downloaded and sent off to your developers or your red team penetration testers for validation. Lastly, I want to point out some of the really useful informational level plugins. Important to call out here are the Web Application Sitemap, which tells you what pages the scanner found and which of those were audited successfully during the scan, Performance Telemetry, which tells you what the scanner was doing at each point of the scan, and Technologies Detected, which gives you a rough software bill of materials from the scanner's perspective. There's also tons of other great plugins as well, such as detection of APIs, authentication-related plugins, and the like. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Today, we'll be discussing the process of how to link Tenable.io or Tenable SC into your Jira on-prem version 7. Version 7 is currently the only supported version for this integration. You'll first go to our downloads page, which is tenable.com/downloads. Then go to integrations and download the Jira on-prem plugin for Tenable. That should download as a OBR file. Once the file is downloaded, you'll go to your Jira as the administrator and go to Settings and Add-ons. Then you'll be taken to Manage Apps and you'll upload the OBR file. You can then proceed to upload the file, and the add-on will now be installed on your Jira on-prem. Once installed, you'll be able to see that the add-on plugin is now included. Then you can go into the modules and see what has been added. If you are strictly using Tenable.io, you can disable the Tenable SC portion. If you're using Tenable SC, you can disable the Tenable.io portion. Refresh the page, and you'll now see Tenable.io configuration and Tenable SC configuration that is available. Go to Tenable.io, and here is the address for Tenable.io, which is cloud.tenable.com. You'll enter your access key found in Settings, My Account, API Keys, and generate your key. You'll see your access and secret key. That is where you'll enter the access and secret key for the Tenable.io configuration. You can also specify the vulnerabilities and the sync time. In this case, I'm going to set for June 1st. And you can determine what the lowest severity will be imported, either that be low or informational. You can set the interval, default being 60. I will then select the project. You can create a project for the Tenable.io vulnerabilities so that there is a separate section in your Jira for the Tenable.io vulnerabilities. I will then save, and that will now link Tenable.io vulnerabilities into your Jira on-prem. For Tenable SC, very similar process. You'll enter the Tenable SC IP address, the username, and the password. The sync of the vulnerability since the lowest severity, the interval, and then similarly, you can create a project for your Tenable SC vulnerabilities, and you can save. Now I'm going to drop down, and I can see my projects, and you'll now see the vulnerabilities from Tenable.io or Tenable SC available in each of your projects as a ticket or issue. That is the process of adding Tenable Jira on-prem plugin version 2 to Jira version 7.
In this video, I'll discuss how to launch a compliance scan using Tenable SC. Compliance is an adherence to a specific baseline configuration for hosts in order to meet regulatory or business requirements. Tenable provides many audit files that can help you measure that configuration. Several industry standards are supported, including PCI, CIS, HIPAA, DISA-STIG, and more. Additionally, Tenable SC supports audits for multiple operating systems, applications, and network devices, as well as auditing file contents and custom audits. A compliance scan in Tenable SC has several requirements. On top of the import repository and targets, you need an audit file, a compliance scan policy, and credentials. Start with the audit file. There are several templates available depending upon the type of audit you wish to perform. The advanced option allows you to upload a customized audit file. Additional audits, as well as documentation, can be found on the Tenable community page. I want to run a CIS audit against my Windows Server 2016 systems, so I'll start with the Windows category and search from there. Give your audit a meaningful name. Note that several audits, such as this one, also give you the option to further customize some settings. Once you have added the audit file, create a scan policy with that audit. The policy compliance auditing template is best for most types of compliance scans. Be sure to add the audit or audits you wish to run on the Compliance tab. Now I'm ready to add the scan. Give your scan a meaningful name and select your audit policy. Choose an appropriate import repository. Add targets. If you scan multiple targets, Tenable SC will automatically check the operating system first before attempting to run the audit. Audits are only run on targets where the audit check type matches up with the target OS. Remember, all audits require credentials. The level of permissions in the credentials may vary depending upon the audit checks. Many Windows audits will need an account that has domain privileges as well as registry and WMI access. SSH credentials should generally have root access or use privilege escalation. Compliance results will display as severity info, medium, or high. Checks with a severity of high indicate a failed check. Checks with a severity of info indicate a passed check, and checks with a severity of medium indicate a warning, meaning that the check could not run for some reason, such as a registry key or a file was missing. You can focus on various checks using filters. This video covers launching a credentialed scan in Tenable SC. Credentialed scans perform local checks on your assets using tools such as Netstat or WMI. This provides the most comprehensive and reliable data. A credentialed scan in Tenable SC has multiple components: the policy, the credentials, and the scan targets. First, we'll set up the policy. The credential patch audit template is the simplest to use for this type of scan. There are many settings that can be customized for this scan policy, but the defaults are sufficient for most networks. However, since I'm going to be scanning a Windows asset for this demonstration, there is one setting I'd like to change. Many Windows systems have domain and local users that are outside the default ranges, so I like to update this in order to make sure all the users are enumerated. Next, ensure you have access to the correct credentials. Best practice is to use a separate account just for scanning in order to keep accurate records and audit trails. In this case, you can see that I already have some credentials that have been shared with me by the Tenable SC administrator. However, if I don't think that these are the correct credentials, any user can also add credentials here. Now we'll set up the scan. Select the policy that you just added. And it's best practice to assess your network regularly with credentialed scans, so I'll set this up to run every other day. On the Settings tab, make sure you select the correct repository for your intended scan targets. I've already defined an asset list from my internal Windows targets, so I'll choose it here. Now add the correct type of credentials for your target system. Now, if you'd like, you can add more than one credential. That way, if you're not sure which one is correct, it'll try all of them. You can also add a report to run based on the completed scan results. There are many ways to do this, however, report creation is outside the scope of this demonstration. I do have a report set up in this case that will automatically email results to my Windows team, so I'll select that. Save your scan and it will launch at the set schedule. Once the scan is complete, analyze the details the same as any other scan from the Scan Results tab or from the Cumulative. In this case, I'll analyze the same asset that I've scanned. It will be imported. You see that there's a great deal of local checks that have run, and my VPR score shows that I need to get to remediate.
Making a discovery scan in Tenable SC. The goal of this video is to conduct simple identification of assets within your network. To begin, we need to create a scan policy. To do this, we'll navigate to the Scan Policies section. Create a new policy. There are a variety of templates to choose from for different scanning needs. In this scenario, we'll use the Host Discovery template. This template runs quickly as it simply identifies hosts which respond to ping-like requests. Of course, this will also be impacted by the number of hosts you are scanning, as more hosts will require more scanning time. Provide a name and optionally a description and tags. In the Discovery section, you should choose either Host Enumeration or OS Identification. Choosing OS Identification will also try to gather operating system information in addition to simple host checking. Now that we have a policy, we can create a scan. We'll navigate to the Active Scans section and add a new scan. After providing a name, we can choose the policy that we just created. If you'd like to run this scan on a schedule, you can also define that here as well. Next, we'll go to the Settings section. Here we'll choose a repository to put this data in. Next, we'll choose our targets to scan. We'll change our target type from assets to IP and DNS name. Here you can enter individual IP addresses, ranges, as well as host names. Here we've entered a simple IP address range. When finished, we can save the scan. To launch the scan, click the Launch button. To view the status of the scan, navigate to the Scan Results section. Here we can see that the scan is currently in progress, as well as identifying the number of IPs that have been scanned so far. If we click on the scan, we can get some additional details, including which scanner is currently running the scan job, as well as how many IP addresses have already been completed. When the scan has finished, clicking on it will bring you directly to the results. The default analysis tool is the vulnerability summary. If we change this to an IP summary, we can see that the scan has identified 6 assets. Since we chose to gather operating system information during the scan, we can change the analysis tool to List OS to view them.
In this video, I'm going to talk about how to launch a remediation scan in Tenable SC. When you first scan an asset, the results are imported into the cumulative database, which is viewable here in Vulnerability Analysis. Once you have analyzed your vulnerabilities and patched your assets, you can launch a remediation scan to ensure the vulnerability is no longer detectable. Remediation scans can only be launched from a few of the vulnerability analysis tools, those that focus on specific vulnerabilities. This includes the vulnerability detail list, the vulnerability list, and the vulnerability summary. Any of the other views, such as the CVE summary, do not offer this option. For example, a single CVE can cover multiple vulnerabilities. That same rule applies to most of the other summary views. Let's go back to the vulnerability summary to look at a remediation scan and its options. A remediation scan automatically creates a scan policy that targets 2 plugins: the plugin that you are checking to ensure that it's been remediated, and 19506 Nessus scan information. This is listed as a support plugin as a troubleshooting tool. It will give you valuable information, such as whether the credentials used in the scan were successful. The scan is automatically named with the main vulnerability that you are launching it for. You can edit this as needed. Most of the other settings are similar to launching any active scan in Tenable SC. What is pre-selected can vary depending upon where you launch a remediation scan from. For instance, since I selected the remediation scan option from the vulnerability summary view, the targets are not predetermined. The system only knows what vulnerability to look for. You will almost always want to add credentials to your scan as well. Most patches that you remediate, such as this Microsoft Bulletin, are local plugins which require credentials to detect. Failure to add credentials can result in false remediation. Submitting it automatically launches the scan, and that will be viewable in your scan results. Once the scan is complete, if the vulnerability is no longer found on the target, that vulnerability will be moved to Tenable SC's mitigated database. You can view those results here. Switch to mitigated, and then you can export reports from this as well. This video covers setting up and launching an agent scan in Tenable SC. Agent scans are the best way to assess agents that are not consistently connected to your network. The first thing to keep in mind is that you are not actually launching a scan in this case. Tenable SC does not directly talk to agents. Instead, Tenable SC communicates with agent managers such as Tenable.io or Nessus Manager, and then imports the agent scan results from scans run by those systems. To begin gathering data from agents, create a new agent scan. Name the scan, and then select the agent scanner. Enter the name of the agent scan or scans you wish to import in the agent name's scan name filter. Question mark and asterisk wildcard characters are supported here. By default, this is set up with a wildcard which will import all agent scans. You can click on the preview filter to see what would be imported with the filter that you have entered, and then adjust your filter as needed based on that. Since I just want to import Linux agent scans, I'll update my filter. And then I want to click Preview Filter again just to make sure that it's filtering as I want it to, and it is. So it's best practice to set the schedule for just after the scan window ends on your agent manager. For example, I know that my Linux agent scan on my Nessus Manager is run daily at 6 o'clock with a 3-hour scan window. So I'll set this up to run daily at 9 o'clock. And then select your agent repository on the Settings tab. This needs to be an agent type repository that is set up by your Tenable SC administrator. When the scan is complete, view the results in the same manner as any other scan in the Scan Results tab. Notice I see the scan twice, and that's because there was the number 2. There were 2 scans available to import, so it's imported 2 separate scan results. Let's go back to that scan for a second. And I'm going to preview the results again. Now you notice it shows me when it was last fetched, and you notice there's a 0 here now instead of a 2. That's because Tenable SC will only ever import new agent scan results for each agent scan. So I won't see available results here until the agent scan is run again on the agent manager and has new results.
In our series introducing you to the new features that are part of our SC release. In the last video, we talked you through the all-new host asset screen, which is what you're seeing now. In this video, we want to talk to you about the all-new asset criticality rating capability that we have introduced for SC Plus customers. What asset criticality allows you to do is embark on a risk-based vulnerability management journey. And that starts by classifying all of the assets in your environment. So we will programmatically determine the risk of each of your assets, taking into account a number of factors such as its capability, whether it's exposed internally or externally on your network, and so on. So in this particular case, using the example from the previous video, this has been determined to be a criticality of 5. What we also allow you to do is overwrite the Tenable derived calculation. So for example, we might say that this particular server is highly critical to our business. So I can give this an ACR rating of 9. And you can see here that that has now been successfully added. Now, using this, I can leverage this capability as a filter anywhere in the SC application. So for example, if we headed over to the vulnerability list screen, you can see a list of vulnerabilities here. But now we have this new filtering option where I can add in asset criticality. Let's give this a range here. And let's say I'm interested in all of my assets from a range of 8 until 10, and then apply that filter. In addition, and really where the risk-based vulnerability management comes into play, is I can overlay additional filters. So in this case, I might select the vulnerability priority rating here, and again, put in my range. Let's go for between 8 and 10 and apply that. And now I can see the vulnerabilities that are the highest risk within my environment based on the criticality of assets that we have found them on. And as a reminder, the vulnerability priority rating takes into account not only the severity of the vulnerability, but it also combines that with all of the metadata or the other knowledge that Tenable has collected around that vulnerability, such as whether an exploit kit is available, whether active exploits are available, the amount of chat going on in chat rooms, and so on, to provide a real world assessment as to that overall risk, overlaid with that local view as to the most critical assets in your environment. And you can see how quickly you can come up with a prioritization list of those vulnerabilities that you should be addressing first. We're excited to bring this feature to our Tenable SC Plus customers, and we hope you enjoy using our video series showcasing the new features that we have introduced in Tenable SC. In this particular video, I'm in the admin screen logged in as an admin user, and we're going to talk to you about the new capability of being able to manage your Nessus scanners directly from within the SC interface. So in order to do that, click into Resources, into Nessus Scanners. This is a screen you are likely familiar with, but now underneath the options, we have a new feature that we have introduced called Manage System. And this will allow you to directly manage your Nessus scans directly from within the SC interface. We're excited to bring you this feature, and we very much hope you enjoy using it.
This video covers measuring assessment success for credentials in Tenable SC, helping you answer the question, how do I know my credentials worked in my scan? There are several ways to tell if your credentials have been successful. Dashboard and report templates are available to look at this issue. You can also look directly at the output for plugins that report authentication, success, or failure, and you can check to see if local checks have been reported. Local checks are plugins that require credentials. Start here on the dashboard. You're going to search for and add the Nessus Scan Summary dashboard. You can further focus this dashboard on specific assets, addresses, or repositories, or I'm just going to add it for all systems. Now this is a very useful dashboard for scan troubleshooting in general, but here we're going to focus on credentials. So look for the credential checks component here, and you can see a count of credentials that have been used while scanning the network. If you want to see further details on any of these items, just click in the box to drill down. You can also directly look at your scan results. First, we're going to see if local checks were run for my targets. To do that, we're going to filter on the plugin family, specifically looking for the local security checks plugin families for the operating system or systems that you scanned. Now you can see there's quite a few here, as we just support a number of operating systems. I would suggest if you have a large number of targets that you scanned, focus on one of these at a time. And you notice that you don't see Windows. I know in my particular scan, I scanned an Ubuntu target. So I'm going to look at that, and then we'll get to Windows in a second. Anything that says local security checks, though, you notice that all of the checks in that plugin family require credentials. So I have lots of results here, so I'm feeling pretty good about my Ubuntu target. Now for Windows, the Microsoft Bulletins plugin family is not 100% local checks, but it's some local checks. It's about the closest you're going to get. So it'll give you some indication, and I do see some results there. Another thing you can check is look directly in the plugin and look under here at type under plugin details, and it says local. Then you know credentials were required for that check. You can also look at specific plugins. And here I'm going to look for the results of plugin 19506. Write that down, folks. Plugin ID 19506. It is probably one of the most useful plugins for analysis. And that is Nessus scan information. If I look at the details for this, so I know for this particular target, I can scroll down, I can see all sorts of things, but right now I'm looking for the line that says credential checks. So here, it's going to be clear cut. It'll say yes or no. No means credentials did not run on this target. Yes, they did. Oh, and look, I can even see the username and the protocol that they ran. Another useful plugin is 21745. 21745 reports if credentials fail on a target. There is a report template called Credential Scan Failures that will report on this plugin. So you can add that report, again, focus as needed, and run it. Another useful report is Elevated Privilege Failures. If you run SSH.
This video will cover measuring scan success. The goal is to ensure all discovered assets have been scanned, and to identify assets that do not have scan data associated with them. There are multiple ways to do this, and we will start with the simplest method, which utilizes asset lists. In Tenable SC, there is an asset list called Passive Systems with No Scanning. If you do not see this asset list, simply add it by clicking the Add button and searching for it. Click on the asset list and click the Add button. Once added, the list will automatically populate. Here you can see the number of assets in our organization which have not been scanned. Unscanned assets present an unknown security risk and should be assessed as soon as possible. In the menu for this asset list, click View to see more detailed information. Here you can see the number of matching hosts on a per repository basis. Further down, you can see the asset definition, which displays the criteria for which assets will be included in this asset list. You can now utilize this asset list in a variety of other workflows, such as dashboards, reports, and scanning. For example, it is a best practice to scan every asset. We will create a new network scan against the unscanned hosts. Click the button to add an active scan. Choose the scan name and policy. Choose the repository to store the data in. In the Targets section, choose the asset list for passive systems with no scanning. Click Submit to save your scan. Launching your scan against these assets will provide important vulnerability data for these discovered assets.
Nessus Network Monitor greatly increases your ability to detect all the devices that are communicating in your network. Results are automatically imported into the repository or repositories set up by the Tenable SC administrator. It's best practice to use a separate repository for passive imports. If necessary, you can set up multiple repositories for imports for a single Nessus Network Monitor. For instance, if you have your Nessus Network Monitor set up to monitor IPv6 networks, you'll need to add an IPv6 repository in Tenable SC as well and associate it with that Nessus Network Monitor. When setting up the repository IP ranges for passive imports, be aware of what ranges you have filtered on your Nessus Network Monitor. The filters here will take precedence over anything set up in Tenable SC. In this example, even if the Tenable SC repository is set up to allow all IPv4 IPs, only hosts within the monitored network IP addresses will be imported. By default, Tenable SC imports Nessus Network Monitor results every 60 minutes. However, you can adjust that setting to align with the report frequency set up in your Nessus Network Monitor. Do that in the System Configuration, External Schedules. Just set the poll interval to as low as every 15 minutes. Once everything is set up by the administrator, log in as an org user to see your imported assets. You can set up a dashboard that can filter on your repositories, or you can browse the cumulative and set a filter on the plugin type and choose passive. And we change our tool here to IP summary. You have a good query for all of your passively detected assets. In Tenable SC, you can save this as a query, and it'll save all of these filters and this analysis tool. And then you can use that query in reports and dashboards, and you can drill down into the results of any of these. Now you notice that most of these addresses don't have a lot of vulnerabilities associated with them. That's because they're only passively detected, so you just have network traffic to go on. However, now you have hosts that you know you can look further into and run a credentialed scan on for more information.
Today I'm going to show you how to launch a malware scan in Tenable SC.
The goal of this video is to detect unknown software which helps detect new types of malware, as well as potentially unwanted and unmanaged software in the IT systems. Tenable malware detection uses a combined reputation-based whitelist and blacklist approach to monitor known good processes, alert on known bad, and identify the coverage gaps between the two by flagging unknown processes for further inspection. Let me show you how to do this. First, you will click on the Scans tab. When the drop-down menu comes up, click on Active Scans. In the Active Scans window, you will click on the Add button. This will bring up the general settings. In the general settings, you will want to put a name for your scan. Here I will just call it Malware Corp Test. You can put a description, but we'll leave that blank for now. Here we will also want to select a policy. I have a malware policy already configured. You can also create a schedule, but for the purposes of this, we will just do manual. Next, you will click on the Settings tab, and in the settings, you will select a zone. I'm going to select a corporate zone, and I will also select a corporate repository. All the rest of the settings you can leave as default. Next, I'm going to select the Targets tab, and here I'm going to select Corporate Windows for my assets that I want to scan. Finally, we need to click on the Credentials tab. In the Credentials tab, we will click Add Credentials, select Windows, then select Windows Corp for this particular instance. Now I will click the checkbox and finally hit Submit. From here, I will click on the Launch Scan button. You will notice that a window pops up. We will click View Scan Results. Here you can see that the scan is currently pending. We will wait for that scan to finish and then we will look at the results. Now that the scan is completed, let's look at the scan results. In the scan results, we will see the Malware Corp test. We will click on that. And now we can drill down further into our particular vulnerability. As we go into the vulnerability details, we will notice that we have information on the left and right hand side. On the left hand side, you can see a synopsis of the vulnerability with a description, and more importantly, you will see the solution and the plugin output. On the right hand side, we will see information such as discovery. When was the vulnerability first discovered and last observed? We also can get host information as well as risk information, such as a vulnerability priority rating, which is 6.7 in this case. We also can see if there's any exploits available, and we can get information on our VPR drivers, such as the vulnerability age, exploit maturity, and any threat intensity or what types of sources this was picked up on.
Today, we'll go over how to configure Tenable SC offline plugin updates. You will need a Nessus scanner with command line access, as well as access to your support portal to retrieve your activation code specific to the Tenable SC license. Get started here. I'm currently logged into my Nessus scanner, and first off, you want to make sure that the scanner is turned off. This will depend on the operating system of which your scanner is installed on. Now, I'm currently on a Linux system, so I'm going to utilize my command to stop the Nessus service. Then I'll navigate to the Nessus CLI, and this will also vary depending on your operating system. But the command we'll be using is under op Nessus sbin and then Nessus CLI. Nessus CLI will be the same regardless of the operating system. The full command we'll be utilizing is going to be Nessus CLI fetch -- challenge. You'll copy this challenge code and then navigate to the URL listed below. Here, I'll paste in my challenge code and then my activation code found under your support portal account. Once you have that registered, you'll then receive a message to indicate that your registration is complete. You'll want to make sure you save and copy this particular URL. This URL is going to be unique to your account, and it will be the URL that you utilize to download plugins from here on out. You'll want to copy that particular URL and make some modifications to this specific link so that you'll be able to download vulnerability checks specific to Tenable SC. What you want to do is edit this particular URL and replace where it says all-2.0.tar.gz and replace it with sc-plugin-diff.tar.gz. When you access this particular URL, you'll then be able to download our plugins in a tar.gz file. Once you have the plugins downloaded, you'll then want to navigate to your Tenable SC console as the administrator. Now to do this, once I log in as my administrator, I then will want to go to System, Configuration, Plugins Feed, Expand Active Plugins, and choose for the file specifically the SC plugins diff tar file that we just downloaded utilizing the URL. Once this has uploaded, you'll then hit Submit, and Tenable SC will process the new plugins.
Video I will demonstrate how to run external scans in Tenable SC. Tenable SC supports the use of Tenable.io as a Nessus scanner within Tenable SC. It can be used to audit internet-facing IP addresses for both network and web application vulnerabilities from the cloud. Tenable.io scanner can be added to Tenable SC in the same way that internal, local, or remote Nessus scanners are added. Before you begin, make sure you have an active Tenable.io subscription and you know your username and password to log in. We will need this information during our configuration steps. Once that is taken care of, sign in into Tenable SC with your admin credentials to add Nessus Cloud Scanner. From the Resources drop-down, select Nessus Scanners. From the Nessus page, click on the Add button. Name your Nessus scanner and create the optional description. For the hostname, enter the hostname of your existing Tenable.io subscription, which is cloud.tenable.com. For the port number, enter 443, used by the cloud scanner. Enter a username and a password for an active Tenable.io user. In the Active Scan section, select the scan zone to associate with the scanner. I'd like to know that I created a dedicated scan zone beforehand, and you will need to do that as well. This scan zone will be using our external scanner. Scan zones are areas of your network that you want to target in an active scan, associating an IP address or range of IP addresses with one or more scanners in your deployment. Click the Submit button. Once you add it, your Nessus scanner will appear under the Nessus scanner with the status Working. We also recommend creating repositories specifically for external scan data. I did create the dedicated repository already, but you will have to do it as well. What we just did is we made sure to add the Nessus Cloud Scanner. We created a scan zone and assigned our external scanner to a scan zone. And finally, we made sure to create a dedicated repository that will store our external scan data. Now we can go ahead and sign out from the admin user account and sign back in under the security manager account to create the external scan. From the Scans drop-down, go ahead and click on the Active Scans. Click on the Add button. Name your scan.
Select the desired policy. Under the settings, go ahead and select the dedicated scan zone that is using our external scanner. Select our dedicated repository. Select the desired targets and hit submit. Now all you have to do is launch your scan.
In this quick video, we'll walk through operationalizing Tenable products for use with Microsoft's recent Print Nightmare vulnerability. Tenable released a number of plugins used to detect the presence of this vulnerability shortly after its disclosure. Print Nightmare is a remote command execution vulnerability existing in the Windows Print Spooler service, improperly allowing privileged file operations. An authenticated remote attacker can exploit this to bypass and run arbitrary code with system privileges. To begin, please make sure you've utilized the Tenable Security blog for some background on this vulnerability. Using this blog, you can quickly link out to our release plugins for an overview, and we'll walk through these shortly. Now, scrolling down a little bit, you can see we'll highlight our VPR score right here. Tenable uses our proprietary vulnerability priority ratings to score vulnerabilities, and this gives us the ability to dynamically increase this score as threat activity becomes more widespread. As expected, we've seen a steady rise in VPR score since July 2nd, where this vulnerability originated as a 9.2. In the blog on July 7th, we showed it as a VPR of 9.6, and as of today, we bumped that up to a 9.7, so definitely a vulnerability to reckon with. As we scroll down through the bottom of the blog to the identifying affected services section, you can see plugin 151440, which is our print spooler service detection plugin, can be used to begin enumeration. And then you can click on this link near the bottom to jump out to the plugins page and see all the relevant plugins. There are a series of plugins, all enumerated OOB for out of band for the security update, that were quickly released to address this issue. Now, for remediation purposes, of course, we're going to point you back to Microsoft's KB information to understand appropriate remediation steps to patch and things that you need to do to update the registry settings. One of the most recent plugin that we've updated is 151488, which should be utilized post-remediation to ensure that the recommended registry entry has also been applied where the service itself is still enabled. Now let's hop into the product and take a quick walkthrough to highlight how to detect and pursue this vulnerability. From a product perspective, Tenable SC, Tenable IO, or Nessus can be used to scan for this issue, and I'll be using Tenable IO today to highlight this for you. Your starting point is going to be, of course, running a scan. So if we go into the scans configuration, click on Create Scan, and go over and down to the tactical scan section. First thing we want to notice is that we did create a tactical scan called Print Nightmare that would directly go after this particular vulnerability. Of course, at any point in time, you could use the basic network scan, which will also have those plugins enabled. Or if you're using your advanced network scan policy, you can utilize that as well. You just want to make sure that the Microsoft families are, of course, enumerated and enabled in that. So for all intents and purposes, once we configured the scan and ran it, we have two choices. We can go directly into the scan result itself, which would work, just like as if we were in Nessus, but today we'll drill into Tenable IO. There's your individual scan result. Or we can go into the cumulative vulnerability workbench, which is where I'll start. So one of the first things that I did to enumerate this vulnerability was create a couple saved searches. The first one I used, which we'll just go ahead and grab this, would be for the Print Spooler Service Detected vulnerability plugin, and that gives us the ability to identify that I have eight hits for this, 8 assets that would fall into that issue. The second one that I configured was more specific to all the CVEs that fall under that. And you can see I can open up my filter. You can see it's directly related to the CVE, just doing that search, and then showing off all the vulnerability plugins that we enumerated and kind of reviewed earlier in this video. Quick thing to look at, we can go ahead and drill into the exposure related to the registry check. This gives us the ability to go into the output and see the specific information coming back from that key configuration. Now, there's an even easier way to enumerate this. So if you just click on Vulnerability Management, go to the Overview section in Tenable IO, we used to have the proxy logon widget that used to enumerate this information. We've changed that up to bring into Print Nightmare so that we can very quickly access that information. Your missing patch, again, this will drill directly into the issues related to the patch. And then the vulnerability configuration item you've seen just before I clicked over, that will take us into the registry check that we were just looking at. Now, one other way that you can get to this data, very, very easy, but specifically if you're a Lumen customer, is to go over to the Lumen side. And if you utilize the cyber exposure alert widget right here in the middle, this gives you the ability to do two things. One, I can drill directly out to the security blog and read that information from here. Or of course, if I go back and click on the 5% that I have that are currently impacted by this vulnerability, I can open up that filter and it brings me back to that same CVE we were looking at earlier, and it drops me into the asset view. And I can also switch over to the plugin view to begin my investigation. So thanks for your time reviewing this demo. Happy hunting.
Talk about the remediation summary tool. With this tool, you can easily understand the impact of a vulnerability in your network. You can also find out if you apply a patch, how much risk is going to be reduced. Let's start by discussing the vulnerability weight score and how to calculate the vulnerability weight. Go to the admin context, open up an organization. In this screen, at the bottom of the page, you will see the vulnerability weights of 40, 10, 3, and 1. Keep in mind that the informational severity has a vulnerability weight of 0. The purpose of this score is to apply balance to the quantity of vulnerabilities and to the severity of the vulnerability. For example, 40 medium vulns with a weight of 120 could pose more risk to the network than 1 critical with a weight of 40. This helps Tenable.sc calculate the total risk of an asset or subnet. Let's go back to the vulnerability analysis screen. Using the Class C summary tool, you can see the vulnerability score in the second column. This score is the sum of all the vulnerabilities displayed in the filter. For example, if we use the severity filter and set the filter to info, the vulnerability score will be 0. Now let's change the filter to critical and high severities. You have a few subnets, all with critical and high severity vulnerabilities. Let's change tools to the remediation summary tool. In this tool, you can see a list of actions, mostly applying patches, that can reduce risk in your network. Again, remember, this tool is using the same filter applied as before, the critical and high severities. The remediation summary tool works using a concept we call top patch and patch chain. The top patch is a patch that will fix or supersede all other patches. If you single click on the first solution, you will go to the vulnerability summary screen with a filter applied to the plugin ID field. Let's select a solution for MS16-120. In this example shown, the top patch is 94017. This patch will fix all the following patches. Looking in the plugin ID field, you can see the full chain. The top patch is the first patch on the list, followed by all of the other plugins that will be resolved by that top patch. The vulnerability weight is the sum of all the vulnerabilities listed. Let's go back to the remediation summary tool and change to the IP summary tool. Let's choose an IP address for this illustration. In this case, we'll choose 192.168.48.102. If we click on the IP, the agent ID or IP address and the repository are added to the filter. The tool changes to the vulnerability list tool. I will add the low and medium severities, and after the query is refreshed, we'll change to the severity summary tool. You can see the counts are 27, 316, 126, and 12. Now let's change the tool back to the IP summary tool and see what the total vuln score is. The score is 4630. Now I'm going to add those numbers to a spreadsheet. Two sets of data to enter. The top set is the host total vulnerability score. Using the numbers we collected before, 27, 316, 126, and 12, let's populate the cells. The total vulnerability score is 4630, shown in the IP summary tool previously. Now let's go back to the vulnerability analysis screen to see the remediation summary tool in action. Back in Tenable.sc, and let's change the tool to the remediation summary tool. The first solution says apply MS 16-120. If we click on that solution, we can see this is a Microsoft vulnerability with several plugins that are fixable by applying the top patch. Also, you can see the same patch chain as we saw before. Now let's switch to the severity summary tool, and we can see the counts we have are 2, 82, 11, and 1. Let's add them to the spreadsheet. In the second group of numbers, we have the single vulnerability score. Let's add the counts we previously noted in the vulnerability analysis screen. As you can see, the right-hand side, the applied patch score is set, and the risk is reduced by 20.17%. Let's go back into Tenable.sc and see if that number's correct. Back in Tenable.sc, there is a match. So this illustrates how the score is calculated. Should you go through this process for every vulnerability? No. But this exercise shows you how Tenable.sc calculates the score and how the numbers can be trusted and applied to your patch management process. To help you use the remediation summary tool, the understanding risk report and dashboard in the Tenable.sc feed are available. You can read more about the report and dashboard in these blog posts. If we go back to Tenable.sc and switch to the dashboard view, we can see the understanding risk dashboard shows the remediation summary tool in the upper right hand corner. Then in the middle left, we have a matrix that displays risk from exploitable vulnerabilities, vulnerabilities that were published more than 90 days ago, and patches that have been available for more than 30 days. There are several other components that help you understand risk in your environment as well.
We're going to talk about using Tenable to discover, track, and help mitigate the vulnerabilities tracked by the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, in their new Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog. On November 3, 2021, CISA released Binding Operational Directive 22-01, reducing the significant risk of known exploited vulnerabilities. This requires government agencies to address a catalog of vulnerabilities that carry significant risk to federal information systems. With this new catalog, CISA is targeting vulnerabilities for mitigation that have known exploits and are being currently used by malicious adversaries in an ongoing manner. Tenable.sc customers have pre-built dashboards and reports that they can access from within the product to help them report on instances of these vulnerabilities in their networks. These initial reports and dashboards focus on the initial set of vulnerabilities in the CISA catalog that are either past due for remediation and covered by previous emergency directives, or due by November 17, 2021. You can access the dashboard by going to the Dashboard section and then clicking on Options in the top right and going to Add Dashboard. I'm going to search here for DHS and select the Binding Operational Directive dashboard. Here you can rename the dashboard. You can also scroll down and change the focus of the dashboard. So if you wanted to focus on a particular asset list or repository, you could make that change here. Once you click Add, it'll take a couple of minutes for the dashboard to fully populate and the data to be available. Once the dashboard populates, you can click into this like any other dashboard and see the systems that are affected and the vulnerabilities that exist on your network that CISA is tracking. The report template functions in much of the same way. To access it, go to Reporting, Reports, click on Add, search for DHS again, and it's that first DHS CISA Binding Operational Directive report. As with dashboards, you can change the targets and the filters, either to assets, repositories, etc., and then click Add. Once the report template is added, you can go in and you can change various details, change what the report focuses on, etc. We also recommend that Tenable SC customers look at adding a query to use that throughout the tool to help search and get the best use out of these additional vulnerabilities. The easiest way to add that is to go back to the dashboard and select which set of vulnerabilities that you wish to save as a query. In this instance, I'm going to look at the query for the vulnerabilities due on November 17th. I'll click into that, and it takes me to the analysis view where I already have the pre-built filter for all of those CVEs. Now I can just go to Options, Save Query. I can save this as the CISA vulns due on 11/17/21. Now I can access this query in the tool whenever I want. This can be done here through the analysis view. It can be done through dashboards. It can be done through reports. It can also be done through the alerting function. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you found this video.
Today, I'm going to talk about a capability within Tenable SC version 5.12. This capability is called the Solutions View, and you can find it at the top panel of your Tenable SC console here. The initial intention of this tool is to provide an area within Tenable SC to quickly identify patches that have the greatest effect on the network's risk posture. For instance, if I leave no assets targeted, then it will show me the overall patches to reduce the greatest amount of risk percentage, the hosts which are affected, and the total number of vulnerabilities that will be resolved. The Vulnerability Priority Rating, or VPR, is included so users can get an accurate estimate of the risk score based on real-world activity. And the CVSS version 3 base score is included as an industry standard. I can also set the tool's view to show me specific asset lists if I wanted to pare down my data for end-user consumption. Once you have the list of patches, they can be drilled down into individually to show the plugins with host counts and vulnerability priority ratings. The user would see the hosts which are affected by vulnerabilities that would be resolved by deploying this specific patch.
So today we're going to be talking about Splunk and the integration with Tenable.sc. You need to have Splunk up and running and ready to go. Go over to tenable.com/downloads and find our integrations page, and then find the Splunk section. Download the Tenable add-on for Splunk and the Tenable app for Splunk. And go over to your Splunk instance and install these two Splunk apps, the Tenable add-on and the Tenable app, and restart Splunk. When Splunk is back up and running, go to the Tenable add-on for Splunk and go to the configuration page. Here we need to add an input or an account name to Splunk to authenticate with Security Center. Put your address for Security Center. Now we have our authentication saved. Go over to Tenable, Tenable.sc. And you need to go over to the vulnerability analysis section. That's where we're at now. And you need to use the vulnerability details list tool, which is in the drop-down. Splunk only uses this tool to bring data into the Splunk platform. You can filter out anything that you don't want to go over to Splunk by using the filters on the left navigation bar. Go to Options and then Save Query. We're going to save this as Splunk. and then navigate back over to the configurations page and go to inputs. We're going to create a new input under Tenable.sc vulnerability. We'll give this input a friendly name, an interval in seconds that we want to refresh. We're going to use our index and then that account that we created. If you want to put a start time in here, you can. Splunk will download all the data available inside of Tenable.sc up until the start date, or whatever is available if the start date is not inputted. Use the sync plugin details to get the plugin outputs, and select the historical fixed vulnerability to get the mitigation dashboard. Here we're going to put in the Splunk query and then add this data. And then immediately what will happen is you'll start to see the indexes start to fill with data. So this is going to take some time. Could take an hour or longer depending on your Splunk instance and how much data we are pulling over.
Today, we'll be discussing the process of how to troubleshoot a specific scan error, which is scan IPs are not within an accessible range. If you ever try to run a scan against a network and you do not have the ability to scan that network, you'll see an error within the scan results that the IP range that you're trying to scan is not an accessible range. Now, there are two areas in which you can verify to troubleshoot this specific error. You will need access to the administrator user in Tenable.sc. If you do not have access to this admin account, please contact the administrator in your organization to gain access to verify these specific areas. The first area we're going to troubleshoot is the scan zone. I logged in as the admin user. To get to the scan zones, you go under Resources, Scan Zones. Now, the scan zone is essentially a range for the scanner tied to that zone, allowing that scanner to scan the specific networks. The network I was trying to scan was 192.168.1.0. As indicated here in my scan zone, it is not an accessible range. I do not have the ability to scan that specific network. You'll then add that network, and this will allow my scanner tied to the zone to be able to scan the .10/24 network. If I were to try to scan that network again, go under Scans, Active Scans, and launch the scan, in theory, I should be able to run a scan against that specific network now. Now, jump back to my results, I can still see that there is an error. Viewing that error, it still indicates that my scan IPs are not within the accessible range. The second section and second area that you want to double check is also within the admin user, and that is the repositories. Jumping back to the admin user, I'm going to go under Repositories, Repositories. Network 3 repository is part of the repository I'm trying to import into. Repository itself is just a database in which the network information then will be stored in that specific repository. Within the IP range here, it does indicate that 192.168.1.0 is also not part of the repository. Now, if I add that specific network in here, this allows me to import any data associated with 1.0/24, and that then allows you to have the data stored in that specific repository. I will hit Submit, and now when I try to run my scan, go back to scan results, you will now see that the scan is available, it's pending, and it will try to run the scan. To recap, the two areas that you want to verify is the admin user in Tenable.sc, which then you'll modify the scan zone and repository. Those two areas are the most important to allow for the networks that you're trying to scan. They will need to be included in those areas to allow you to be able to scan those specific networks.
This video is to explain some troubleshooting tips when you see a connection error between Tenable.sc and Nessus. So here's the situation. You log in as admin to your Tenable.sc, and on the initial dashboard on the left, when you look at the scanner status, you see the bottom entry here where Nessus 1 is showing a red connection error. Now this typically comes from a couple of situations. The first is that the Nessus one scanner is off the network and not talking to a security center. The second possibility is, and this is especially true when you first are putting it in place, is that there's an error in the definition on Tenable SC. So the first place to go is Resources, Nessus Scanner, and then click on that line to edit it. And so you can look up the IP address or host name, in this case 192.168.1.248. Then the next thing you want to do is go to the Nessus Scanner command line. In this case, we're working with the Tenable appliance, and so we're going to use the command IP space adder. We see on interface 2, ENS 160, it has the address 192.168.1.251, which is not what we saw in the definition. So if we go back to the definition in Tenable SC, we change it to 1.251. We click Submit. Then Security Center reaches out to the Nessus scanner with a new connection. They handshake and begin to sync. Now when we look at the dashboard, we see the third line that it says working. Another status it might give is that plugins updating, which will typically last for several minutes, but is a normal response for this situation. Now, this description and scenario does not cover all possibilities. A couple other considerations: something on the network is blocking it, or that something in the way that host is configured is blocking it. So we can use network connectivity commands like ping, traceroute, or curl. We also can look at how is the firewall settings on that host. For more information on this, go to the Nessus user guide on docs.tenable.com or go to community.tenable.com where there's some excellent articles.
IO. When you log in for the first time, you're going to notice that we've moved the navigation pane to the left side of the screen. Here you can access your dashboard, your analysis, scan, reporting, and so forth. You'll also notice that we've updated the dashboard main look, the background for the dashboards to give them a pop feel, to bring them front and center. The buttons have been rounded with an updated modern look. One of the other changes we've added was new filters for NetBIOS. Let's go through and add this together. So as you can see, one of the new filters is the ability to filter by NetBIOS name. Note that regex is not supported in the 6.0 release. We've also added a scans creation for both filtering on created and finished date. So you can sort by 7 to all times. We've also updated a scan policy management functionality within the scan policies. This is only available in the advanced scan. Under the advanced scan, go to plugins. Let's go through and create a mixed plugin family. So I'm just going to disable these two plugins and go back. And now we can see that this is locked. When it is locked, only the enabled plugins will run. Any new plugins that are published to that family are not enabled. If you unlock this, any new plugins added to this plugin family will automatically be enabled. Another feature we've added is the ability to set password expirations on user accounts. Under this account, we can now see that either password never expires, or we can create a custom password expiration. Another feature we've added is the ability to download SC patches through the feed. We need to log in with our SC admin. Under System Configuration, under Plugin Feed, at the bottom, we'll see if there's any new patches available for SC 6.0. To wrap this up, Tenable SC 6.0 has gotten a significant UI uplift that
provides a new modern feel to SC 6.0. These changes will allow you to quickly navigate through the different areas, control users and their passwords, the new scan policy plugin management, updated filters, and we've added support for newer operating systems. We're talking about one of the new features in SC 6.0 called Universal Repositories. This is available in both SC and SC+. In Tenable SC5, repositories must be separated by IPv4, IPv6, and agents. In the new Tenable SC 6.0, we are giving users the ability to create a universal repository. This allows you to keep IP and agent data in one repository. This also gives you better accuracy in vulnerability identification, mitigation, as well as providing support for new functionality. This also keeps agent and IP assets together to avoid data duplication. Let's go through and create a universal repository together. Log in as your Tenable SC admin, go to Repositories, and click Add. And select the new universal repository. Fill in the required information. IP ranges should be everything that you intend to scan with Tenable SC. This also includes agent data as well. We can go through and add the organization, trend analysis, and data expiration. Once this is created, we can now go through and log in as our scan manager and assign any new scans or older scans to that new universal repository. One of the problems that this does solve is data duplication. As you can see, I am filtering on both IP and agent-based repositories. We can see that there is some minor duplication going on. Let's go through and filter just on the new universal repository. Let's deselect the two repositories and go down to Universal Repository and hit Apply. We have now condensed both IP and agent-based data into one single result. As we see, Universal Repository allows us to keep the data consistent when using filters, dashboards, and reports. This allows you to have a better experience when tracking vulnerabilities and mitigations. Please note at this time, older repositories cannot be merged into the Universal Repository.
Update Tenable SC plugins manually. You will need to start off by logging in as your administrator account in Tenable SC. Once you are logged in, you'll want to go to System, Configuration, Plugins and Feeds. Depending on your version of Tenable SC, you will then be able to update the feed, the active plugins, passive, and the log correlation event plugins. Simply click Update, and that will force the manual plugin update. One thing to make note, you want to make sure that you have an updated activation code under System, Configuration, and License. Here, you'll make sure that Nessus Scanner is registered. This activation code can be found under your support portal accounts, activation codes on the left, expand Tenable SC, and you'll see a activation key listed there.
.inc files to upload to Security Center. You'll need the custom certificate provided by your organization. This file will need to be in a base64.pem format. When you view the contents of the certificate file, you can see the begin certificate and end certificate. If you have multiple certificates, you'll need to stack them on top of each other in this one .inc file. With all the certificates loaded, save this file as custom_ca.inc. Next, we're going to make another .inc file for the plugin feed. Open a text editor and enter plugin_set equals, open quote, year, month, date, hour, and minute, and then end quote, and press enter. The minutes should be a little bit in the future. Next line should have plugin underscore feed, equals, open quote, the word custom, end quote, semicolon. Save this file as custom underscore feed underscore info dot inc. Now we're going to create the tar file called upload underscore this.tar.gz that will be uploaded to Security Center. It's best to use the Security Center server's Linux-based operating system to create this tar.gz file. While in the directory where the .inc files are located, run .tar command with the custom underscore feed.info.inc. Custom underscore feed underscore info.inc and custom underscore ca.inc files we created earlier. Once the tar.gz file is finished compiling, we need to upload the file to Security Center. To do this, let's log into Security Center as the admin user and visit the plugins section by selecting your username and then plugins. Select Upload Custom Plugins and choose the tar file you created. Finally, we want to verify everything worked correctly, so you want to visit the system logs, and here you will see the logs showing you that everything was uploaded successfully. This plugin will be included in the next feed and forwarded to the Nessus scanner. So next you'll want to visit the Nessus scanner host. On the command line, you'll want to view the plugin directory and search for the custom underscore ca.inc file that you created. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Demonstrate how to upload a custom NASL package to Tenable SC. Let's log in. And then in the upper right-hand corner, click on your username and click on Plugins. Once on the custom plugin page, click on the custom plugin upload and choose a file. And click Submit. You'll get a notification that the custom plugin file was successfully uploaded. To verify this job was uploaded, you can go to your system files and see that it's in the logs. To further validate this, run a scan, including plugin 51192, to validate certificates and verify that your custom plugin package made it into the plugin database.
In this video, we will discuss applying a license key and activation code to Tenable.sc. When a new license is created, you will receive an email with the activation code and a license key file that will need to be saved locally on your computer. This activation information could also be found on the Tenable licensing site. To apply the license, you will first need to open your browser and go to your Tenable.sc URL. Once there, log into the tool using an admin account. If you are applying a new license or your existing license has expired, you'll be taken directly to the license configuration page. Once there, click on Update License and select the location where you save the .key file from the email. Press the Activate button. If everything's correct, the page will indicate that the license is valid. Next, we will need to click the plus to the right of where it says Nessus Scanner. In that field, paste the activation code that you received from the licensing email. Click Register, and a check mark will appear indicating the activation code was successfully applied. This is the whole process for applying a license in Tenable.sc. If you want to review your license information or need to apply a renewal license, this page can be found by logging in as an admin and in the top navigation bar, clicking on System and then down to Configuration. Once there, you will see the license link with the key icon that will take you back to the license configuration page.
We're going to take a look at dynamic asset lists within Tenable SC. So within the asset section of Tenable SC, you'll have some pre-populated asset lists. One we're going to take a look at today is the Apple Computers dynamic asset list. So before we dive into that particular asset list, the differences between a dynamic asset list and a static asset list is a static asset list is looking for a static piece of information, an IP address, a host name. A dynamic asset list is looking for something about any host in the environment. So in this particular case, as we dive into the Apple Computers dynamic asset list, you can see that we're looking for any host in the environment that under the operating system flag contains Mac OS or OS X. As you can see, it has found 3 assets in that list, and it has identified them. And if any other hosts in our environment are scanned that also meet this pattern, it will add them automatically to this dynamic asset list. This is very helpful when you're talking about any type of operating system or application in your environment. You can create a dynamic asset list so that that asset list is kept up to date every single time you scan.
In this video, I'm going to talk about how to use filters in Tenable SC for vulnerability analysis and how to set up queries from those filters. Tenable SC has a large number of filters that can be used to help narrow down your vulnerability analysis. You can then save those filters as queries. Queries can be used in many of the other features in Tenable SC, such as reports, dashboards, tickets, and alerts, as well as to quickly reuse the same filters from the vulnerability analysis view. Many of the filters have their own rules as well. Details on specific filters are outside the scope of this particular presentation, however. You can find those details here in the online documentation. Just search for Tenable SC filters. To set filters, expand the Filters pane from the Vulnerability Analysis view. Only a few of the available filters, those that tend to be the most popular, are listed by default. To add additional filters, just click Select Filters. You can scroll through the alphabetical list, or if you know what you're looking for, enter that into the search window. Let's say I want to know which of my Windows 2016 systems have had high or critical vulnerabilities detected within the last 7 days. So I'll go ahead and add the asset filter and the vulnerability last observed filters, and the severity filter is there by default. Now I go ahead and set my values. Once everything is set the way you want it, go ahead and click Apply All. Let's take this one step further. I want to view which systems are affected, so I'll go ahead and switch this to the IP summary view. Now I'm looking at everything that I want to. I want to go ahead and save this as a query. Now all you have to do is click Load Query and it'll reload everything. Everything's already loaded there, but It will also include, no matter if you're in a different analysis tool, when you load the query, it loads that as well. You can also manage your queries directly from the queries page. Here you can add, edit, delete, or share your query. Any query you create is usable by default by all users within your user group. When you share that query with all users in the user group that you're sharing it with.
In this video, I want to share with you some simple examples of how to use LDAP and Tenable.sc. The use cases we're going to talk about are different ways to use LDAP queries to find assets for the purposes of scanning, user responsibility, and so on. We are going to show 3 examples: Windows 7 in an organizational unit, login count low, and managed by attribute. Many companies use organizational units in Active Directory to group users and workstations, so we can utilize that same ability in Tenable.sc. In this example, we're going to use 2 filters, the object class and the operating system, and then set the search base to the appropriate OU. In this case, it'll be OU equals New York, DC equals demo, DC equals INT. So I'm going to click on the link here for the Windows 7 located in New York. Then we see here defined is our search base and our search string. Notice we have a star at the end of Windows 7. This helps to include Windows 7 Professional, Windows 7 Ultimate, and so on. I can click on the Generate Preview, and you can see that I have 1 system shown. This is correct. I'll hit Submit. As the asset list is edited, we'll show calculating, and it'll show results of 1. Take a look at the next example, login low count. Many times a customer asks how to find new systems on the network, or they use an OU to stage new systems. But the systems are only in the OU for a day or so. How can we scan the systems that are new? In this case, we can use the login count attribute. Set a threshold that you consider to be low and scan away. In this example, I'm going to set the filter to 40, but this setting you will need to define locally. If we click on the LDAP login count less than 40 new systems asset, we can see that we are searching our entire Active Directory structure. We have our object class as computer, and the login count equals less than or equal to 40. When we generate preview, we can see that we've got 3 systems discovered. Using this filter, we can easily scan systems that have only been on the network for a short period of time. This last example, we're going to assign an Active Directory user to manage other objects. In this case, we are assigning Bob Smith to manage systems. We can create a user in Tenable.sc and assign that user an asset. This allows the security team to use the user responsibility tool to see the assets managed by Bob and report the risk on those systems. Let's take a look at the asset followed by the analysis screen. We click on the asset here, managed by Bob. You can see we set the search base to our full Active Directory, then our search string to object class computer, and then the managed by attribute. Be sure to set the full distinguished name in your search string. Click on Generate Preview. We've got our 3 systems that are matched. Now let's verify that the user is configured correctly. We'll search down here. We see responsibility, asset, again LDAP managed by Bob. Now we click on the analysis screen. Go to vulnerabilities. We can choose the user responsibility tool. We can see the other users. We click on Bob here, and we can see the list of vulnerabilities that Bob is managing. As you can see, very quickly we can leverage different LDAP attributes such as service pack, logons, the operating system, organizational units, groups, etc.
In this video, I'll talk about how to use the Tickets feature in Tenable SC to aid in your remediation efforts. Let's look first at the Tickets page. Tickets can be created by users with many roles within Tenable SC, including Executive, Security Analyst, Security Manager, and Vulnerability Analyst. Assign the ticket to a user within Tenable SC. There are several classifications to choose from to help organize your tickets. A ticket consists of a predefined set of conditions. These conditions can be created using a pre-existing vulnerability or event query within Tenable SC. A ticket can consist of multiple query views. It's important to note that a query view is a snapshot in time, namely the moment you add the ticket. To view this snapshot, browse the ticket. Edit the ticket to make updates. Once the issue is resolved, the ticket can also be resolved or closed. You can also create tickets manually from the vulnerability or event analysis pages. Just load the query or filters for hosts, vulnerabilities, or events you wish to address. You can then save this view as a ticket. To create a ticket automatically via an alert, add it as an action. Finally, you can easily track tickets by adding the Ticket Summary dashboard. This dashboard can be exported to a report as well.
What we would do is we'd click on the Analysis tab and then Vulnerabilities, and we want to change this Vulnerability Analysis view to Remediation Summary. And what we have here is basically like a list of things to do that if these are done, then multiple vulnerabilities, multiple plugins, multiple CVEs will get remediated. So this is kind of a slightly different way of looking at the things to do rather than just printing out a list of plugins or a list of hosts and all the vulnerabilities for those hosts. This is a slightly different view. So just taking a look at the first example, it's just looking to apply a Microsoft patch. So it's affected on 15 hosts, total 15 vulnerabilities, 15 CVEs. So if I click on this for more details, which we will do, I'm gonna see that there are 15 hosts affected. And let's take a look and click on this. So it's just one plugin, which makes sense because there were 15 vulnerabilities, 15 CVEs. Now if I click on this to go even further, it shows the number of hosts, the exact IP addresses, host names, that this vulnerability has been detected on. And if we click into it one more time, you basically have the view of an individual plugin that was reported on an individual host. So if we scroll down to the CVEs, there is only one, which makes sense. Because if we look at this view, well, for remediation summary, you have 15 hosts, 15 CVEs, 15 vulnerabilities. So rather than diving into this right now, let's see what we actually need to do, because we can actually skip over everything, all the details. So as long as we apply this patch to these particular hosts, that's all you got to do. So that's the list of thing to do. That's for the first item. And what that'll mean is once that patch is applied, it will clear up 15 vulnerabilities in your environment. So when using this view, it's a shorter list, and it's basically saying if I do this one thing, then I'll solve 15 problems. And right now it's in order by the risk percentage, which is defaulted with Tenable based off of the plugins that were reported and the severity of those plugins. But you can actually filter this by a variety of columns here. So like, let's say you wanted to take a look at just the number of hosts affected. So if you say, okay, I want to resolve a vulnerability for 59 hosts instead of 15, maybe you'll sort here, and then this will be the first one. So in the top right, I'll click my username and then click on plugins. And here shows all the plugins, and I'd actually like to filter specifically by plugin ID. Well, let's take a look at 19506, which is a very useful plugin. So Nessus scan information. So here you can see it's pulled up, and if you click the I here and switch to source, this is the source code for the plugin. So if you have some sort of interest on looking up a particular plugin to see how it's written and see how it operates, following that instruction will give you the ability to do that.